live from our nation's capital, the still occupied nation's capital. Raheem, I think what we ought to do in the terrific diary the National Pulse does every day, I think we ought to be like Nightline was back in the Iranian hostage crisis. I actually think we ought to start thinking about on the National Pulse's diary to put how many days we're occupied. I mean, the great Jack Posobiec, right? Everybody in the War Room Posse knows him. Jack Posobiec's leaving One American News last night, going by exactly where we were when we did the Mike Lindell 3-hour special. I actually went to their broadcast center here, which is 2 minutes away from us on Capitol Hill in normal times. Now it's about 15 or 20 minutes. You got to wing around. It's a complete wall and fence there with razor barbed wire right outside of One America. And when we left that night, the guards come over and they give you stink eye, right? Posobiec last night kind of puts up his live stream, and they're like, "Where are your papers? Yeah. Where's your regulation? You're in the war room in an occupied still." And I don't understand why these governors. And they tell us that's $486 million. I think that's as much as Trump spent on the wall. We're going to get to all that. It's Ash Wednesday, the 17th of February, the year of our Lord, 2021. You're in the war room, and I'm so glad that Raheem Kassam's here. A lot of times after Shrove Tuesday, Raheem, takes the morning off and comes in later on celebrating right before Lent because, Raheem is very focused on Lent.
We're focused on Pancake Day.
Pancake Day. Yeah. We got a lot to get through. We're going to start with, I guess I would say an American original. Only in America can somebody like Mike Lindell come on the scene. Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Mike, thank you very much for joining us. Joe Biden, and I realize that this is one of the things and the focuses of your life that you're now part of this anti-CCP crusade. You're like saying, hey, there's something wrong with November 3rd. Although President Trump is now in a firefight with Mitch McConnell about direction and control of the Republican Party, I've advocated on a speech I gave Saturday morning to a Lincoln Day pancake breakfast, right, about President Trump should, I think, immediately take charge of the 2022 campaign and basically become Speaker of the House after we have a sweeping victory, impeach Joe Biden immediately, and then after he's impeached in 100 days, announce he's running, step down and announce he's running for president in 2024 to get fully engaged here. He's in this firefight with Mitch McConnell. And they're going, the McConnell guys are getting a little nasty about this now, about exactly what kind of help President Trump gave him. There's breaking news, and Mike, with you, and that's why we wanted to have you on this morning. At 10 o'clock today, Eastern Time, you're launching again the film in a number of different venues. Plus, you're launching a version that's under 30 minutes long that's just the evidence. So tell us, if the president's now fighting with McConnell, they're talking about the direction of 2022 and beyond, and fighting over these Senate candidates, and President Trump is the leader of our movement. President Trump is going to give the direction of it, and as I've said, in the Boston Herald picked it up as their front page story. I'd like to get that back up into the live chat so everybody can see it. That President Trump's going to win in 2024 if he puts his shoulder to the wheel and engages. He'll win. Particularly, I think, as we saw from Biden's performance last night, we'll talk about the details. We're going to still be in the CCP virus up till Christmas of this year, that he has no real plan to open the schools. It's all gobbledygook. Alfredo Ortiz will come in later to talk about that. But, Mike, tell folks you won't give it up. You're still focused on the third. Why is that? Why did you say, hey, we've had the Senate trial. Is it time to, you're the guy that's not moving on. And clearly, every day, the Dominion guys, you're in this firefight with the Dominion guys. Why is Mike Lindell not moving on from November 3rd? In fact, you're tripling down today by putting out, and I did the 3-hour special, and I said, hey, you prepared to put more evidence out? You go, absolutely. So today you're doing it. Talk about what's happening at 10 o'clock. Talk about things. And why is it just that you're so obstinate? You're one of these guys that gets on something and just can't give it away? Are you doing this for the country? I think because you got so many fans in our live stream and on #WarRoomPandemic, you're really, people feel that you're a leader and feel that you're a patriot and you got the country's best interests. But why won't you just give it up? Why don't you just toss it in, go make some more pillows, and and come back in 2024?
Well, there would be no 2024 or 2022. Everything you just said there about the plan of 2022 or 2024 makes no difference, because Dominion and Smartmatic and other countries will pick our politicians. And that's what happened this year. That's what happened on November 3rd. foreign entities, including China, picked all of our politicians, and they picked Biden, and millions of votes were flipped. The special today that's coming out, it might be delayed a little bit. We had problems with power outages, and my IT guy lives there. He doesn't have power. He's trying to do it. Trying to get it launched on computers and cell phones with no Wi-Fi. So, but it'll be launched real close to 10. And the thing is this is going to be all just the facts. There's going to be no experts in there, nothing, because you don't need that.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where you got the evidence.
But hang, I just slow down for a second, because we did this in a 3-hour special. You're coming out with other versions of the 2-hour movie, and you're putting that out with influencers. I want to walk through that, and you've got a 30-minute just evidence. There couldn't be a bigger spread between the bid and the ask. Dominion's saying absolutely consistently, hey, Mike Lindell may know a lot about pillars. He doesn't know anything about technology, computers, internet, voting machines, voting. He's not just wrong. He's dead wrong, and he's, I guess, defaming us by saying this. And you're sitting there going, no, I've got the facts. I've got the evidence. I put it out. So it's this gulf. It's this gulf. What are you doing today? Have you reached out to the Dominion guys to say, let's sit down? Have you reached out to the Dominion guys to say, hey, I've got the evidence. I want you to prove me wrong? And why is this 28-minute or 30-minute version of evidence? When you say evidence, is it hard evidence, or is it more assertions by smart people? But are you actually showing evidence?
Well, that's two questions there. The first one is Dominion and Smartmatic, but Dominion themselves. Big article came out yesterday because actually one of a friend I have that's a very left-wing guy, he reached out to Dominion. Hey, are you going to sue Mike? He just, and they finally said, oh, yes, we're going to do it, which, I hope they do. I can't tell you enough, because it would make it a lot easier, because then they're going to have to disclose everything, because it's just a fight. Even when you get a subpoena like Maricopa County in Arizona, even with the subpoena, they're still not wanting to show a machine. But to answer the second part of your question, this evidence, okay, these are timestamps from inside the spyware used by our government, used by people that work in and out of the government that were there from November 1st to November 5th, that take these timestamps, and you see the IP address, you see the ID of the computer, where the attack came from, the exact moment in time, which computer over here got hacked, the exact computer, or were they let in, and you see the IP address. These are things that are used in court, if anybody looks at it. And these are actually, now I want to say, these aren't the actual prints. These are taking the data off what comes out of the computer. You and I would have a hard time reading all the computer talk, but this prints it onto these sheets. That's very easy for anybody who did the attack, which computer, and so on. One of the things I want to tell everybody, because I've gotten thousands of emails from the Absolute Proof. The last third of it is where this big evidence is. And one of the biggest questions is, well, how do we know this is real, that you didn't just make it up? Well, I've seen it with my own eyes. That's A. There's 3 people that are all involved, and they're ready to come forward when it would get to a court or something like that. But most importantly, just yesterday, we had a group the last 2 weeks, or since February 5th, have went around and validated the IP addresses and the IDs of those computers. I want to say that again. We validated here's the spyware, the ID of the computers, and let's say this one's in Fulton County Clerk's office or whatever. Boom, there it is. Wow, you check it. What? They match? And then you have that. Then we have done this both in Maricopa County, that open case up there, and Antrim, and we have compared what votes were flipped there, because we actually got, they actually are ongoing cases. Both of them are ongoing cases. What votes were flipped there, and does it match this evidence over here? And guess what? Identical.
Okay.
Identical.
Okay. I want to go back for people that have seen Absolute Proof. If you haven't, you definitely ought to see it. I like the 3-hour version where we break the film apart and I push back. I want to be specific. In the part with, I think it was Dennis Montgomery and Mary Fanning at the end of the film where you have this big reveal, you put up 2 pieces of evidence. I thought they were quite confusing. And I said that first off, the computer chart she had that had all this about where it actually came from. And I said, hey, are you prepared to put out more? I take it what you're saying today, specifically about these IP addresses, because I said, hey, could you have independent people kind of verify that? You're saying now that first piece of evidence they put up, this is what you're providing more about exactly IP addresses, and you can actually have people ascertain that this really came from either Antrim or other places, and you can match it to that?
Right. There's a strip of those, and it's not necessarily the two people you just mentioned. I have, just so you know, I'm not relying on one source. There's 3 different sources, okay, all with had the same access. Okay. I just want to make that clear. There's multiple sources. And yes, these things go on and on. There's over 2,000 pages. I'm not going to show them all on TV during this 30 minutes, but you could just take any line, let's say it's 11/3 at 10:06 a.m. You see the timestamp. You go over it. You see who attacked. You see the IP address, the ID of the computer. You could drive right down in your car, Steve, and go in there if you and I knew how to get the ID off that computer and go, what? How would they have known that? Thousands of computers if this wasn't real.
Okay,
that's it.
I just want to say, there are a lot of news sites that are very, I don't say supportive, but are very obviously think the world of you and try to report this even-handedly as you get attacked all over. Even some of those question either the motives or some of the information was put in this section. I just want to make sure we're clear. This 30-minute new film you're coming out with called The Evidence, right? That evidence is to back up certain assertions that were in the original movie that you think give more depth and more clarity to some of the assertions that were made. And this is now backed up by people that were not originally in the film, but other people, correct?
That's correct. And I want to say one thing, too. This is going to answer a lot of questions and people that didn't get through that last third of the film. But one of the things I want to say is in the beginning of this, with just the evidence, I want to say all these, I do put up the charts of the organic cheating, the dead people, the minors, the people that didn't live in the state. Those came from Secretary of State's offices, their numbers that were given by the state. I went back and double checked them. So these are all numbers that were given by the state. So you can say, well, where'd you make up these numbers? No, those numbers were not made up. And it just validates a lot of things there. So if you have any doubt in your mind that this is real, and I want to tell everybody, I have better things to do, and I'm 100% all in. This is about our country. This is about our country. This is about our future. This is about 2022, if it even will happen. 2024, if we got to get rid of the machines, all of them, Smartmatic, Dominion, it can't happen. And this is going to show you all that.
Okay, Mike, we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to return in a moment. When we return, Raheem's going to give us a little summary of Joe Biden's performance last night regarding China. Remember, I'm sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party as a civilian. We are the anti-CCP, part of the anti-CCP movement. The performance last night of Joe Biden was unacceptable. When you cut to everything that Mike Lindell's talking about, he really says that he agrees with DNI that China had an active role in the 2020 election. DNI, I think, would say is probably more social media. Mike Lindell says the biggest cyber attack in world history. We're going to return in a moment with Mike Lindell, CEO of Mike Pillow.
We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all life for too long.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You know, Chinese leaders, if you know anything about Chinese history, it has always been the time when China has been victimized by the outer world is when they haven't been unified at home. So the central, vastly overstated, the central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China. And he uses his rationale for the things he does based on that. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And so the idea, I'm not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China, and Taiwan trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. I said, and by the way, he said he gets it. Culturally, there are different norms at each country, and their leaders are expected to follow.
That is the Beijing party line right there. That is the biggest amount of gobbledygook I've ever seen. You know, Raheem Kassam broke the story yesterday. Everybody's picking it up now about Kamala Harris making phone calls. This is at the core of it. What Mike Lindell's, crusade is that China actively involved in the 2020 election, and DNI Radcliffe had owed the president the report. Didn't come till 45 days by an executive order in 2018. Foreign influence. CIA slow walked it. Finally came at the last days of the administration. The same time Pompeo designated the genocidal regime. All the stuff out of Wuhan that the intelligence service said it came out of Wuhan out of some sort of, they didn't actually go to say a bioweapon. But the whole thing's on China, and no offense, because I understand Raheem will talk later about this. He tried to come across as the good guy, the anti-Trump essentially, right? But Trump's forceful. That's what we need on the world stage. That right there, coming from people that live and breathe the CCP thing every day, is scary, and it's gobbledygook. Raheem Kassam.
Well, at least now we know what the 2 hours on the phone with Xi Jinping were about. He was doing debate prep. He was doing town hall prep.
Wow.
Xi Jinping saying, hey,
notes.
Anderson Cooper's really going to give it to you up there, so we're going to go through line by line what you say. It was the Chinese Communist Party's line, their propaganda. And I got news here. We are going to report on the National Pulse in the next couple of days Joe Biden's links to one of the leading Chinese propaganda outfits. We have the receipts of them.
Wow.
So if I go missing, you go looking for Natalie Winters on this. But deadly seriously, this was not just one moment in this town hall last night where Joe Biden belied the nice guy exterior, betrayed the idea of, the affable, and he was affable. Many times last night he was affable. We'll get into that later on.
Yep.
But there were many moments scattered within where you saw this pernicious anti-American Joe Biden, and this was the cherry on that cake.
I want to go, by the way, the film is absolute proof. He's now put out another 30 minutes evidence. He's also going to put it out through influencers all today. How do people, first, Mike, before we talk about China, how do people get access to what you're putting up right now? Understanding you've got some power problems out in the Midwest and down in Texas and places. How do people go see? What I really wanted to see is your 30-minute film today on your new evidence that you're prepared to back up.
Right. Well, as soon as it's up, it should be. I just checked with them on break there. It'll be lindelltv.com. lindelltv.com. If you want to watch it right now, we do have it up on michaeljlindell.com. But that part, once you share it, that's gonna, that'll be hit right away. We put a lot of safeguards on, and when we get the lindelltv.com up, that they're not going to be able.
What do you mean?
To attack that.
By the way, everybody in the audience, or everybody in the audience, obviously stay here, but you've got to go see lindelltv.com when it's up, the 30-minute film, or michaeljlindell.com to say. When you say hit, what do you mean by hit? Because you got these influencers, this old whack-a-mole thing. What do you say hit? Who's hitting you?
Well, all the social media, the bad social media sites like Twitter, and it'll be Twitter, Facebook. I'm sure they're going to, when they get wind, they'll put up partially false information or contains nudity. I mean, these are all things that Facebook does, but you get to YouTube and Vimeo, these places, as soon as the computer catches that it's any of this evidence against Dominion or Smartmatic or these machines, bam, they're going to take it down. But we put stuff in place where it's going to pop back up. And we've got these, we really went to it's very elaborate. It's like fighting back and going, sorry, our voices are going to be heard. I want to quick, before I forget, Steve, I want to tell everyone, everyone's asking what they can do. I got emails last night from 3 different counties in the country where they went and they're demanding to know why their counties had these Dominion machines and why a lot of them bought them in 2019. And they're demanding answers. They want to know what was wrong with the old way, what was wrong before we got these machines. And that, and so I think it's going to be a big movement. like I say, I hope Dominion
What-
gets,
what-
does good on their promise today and sues me.
Why have I love it. This guy doesn't double down. He quadruples down. But hang on a thing. Before you get to lawsuits, why have you not sat down with Dominion executives and say, look, I'm a businessman. You're a businessman. There's a problem here. I've identified a problem. And here's what you got to do. And particularly if there's any link to China or this stuff, because they keep saying the guy's a nutcase. We're not hooked to the internet. You can't get out. We don't even cross. The CEO comes out and says, hey, Mike Lindell, now he's not going to Barcelona or wherever it's going. It doesn't cross county lines. Lindell so not understands what's going on. It doesn't cross county lines. Why have you not sat down with the Dominion guys? Why do you got to take it to a court? Why can't you work this thing out businessman to businessman?
Well, because it's obviously them. They won't. They'll send me the last letter they sent was, whoever you use in your documentary, we'd like to know because, and they sent me a list of people that weren't credible. And they said, you're going to be embarrassed if you use these people. Well, I didn't use any of those people. And I've reached out to them. I said, somebody tell me where I'm wrong. All the media outlets have not called to say, hey, you're wrong here. You're wrong here. One guy did, but it was that left-wing friend of mine. And I said, did you look at the evidence? Did you watch the movie? He said, no. I said, well, then how can you put in your article that it's false? And I want to tell another thing too is I know we just lost power here. Kendra, can you open that up, please?
Yeah.
Can you still hear me, Steve?
We can hear you.
Still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Can't see you. We just
Okay.
Mike Lindell.
Well, we lost power. We lost power. I'm going to try and come over here. At least you can see me a little bit. But I want to say, when you asked about China, if you look at the evidence you're going to see on this short clip, on this evidence here, the power came back on. If you see the evidence, it's going to show that China was 60% of all the attacks came from China. 60% of these cyber attacks came from China. And so that's
see, but this is where statistic. I think, so this is where I think you raise up the stakes, because as I said on the 3 hour, that's why I think you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people that are your followers. You owe it to the country and even to the company, because here you take it to a different level and say, hey, and this was you. This is the biggest cyber attack in world history. Now, the head of DNI came out and said definitively they were involved in the 2020 election. Most people interpret that as some social media with the Wu Mao 50 Cent Army or something, some social media impact in that. But you're saying something different. You've taken up that, hey, basically it's an act of war. That's got to be backed up. And that's what this 30-minute new evidence is. And are you prepared to show additional evidence before you get into a court of law with the Dominion guys? Because clearly they told Daily Beast yesterday a lawsuit is imminent. So are you prepared to show additional evidence? Or you hold it? Look, you're only tripling down. I mean, you somehow eventually they're going to do something, right?
Steve, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a evidence video, maybe about every 3 or 4 days. Maybe it take a few 5 or 6 days. We'll break out every swing state. Whatever it takes. Here's a swing state. Here's all the evidence of the machine stuff from that particular state. We're going to break down exactly the charts by country, by the attacks. We'll break it down by state, by computer, and say, hey, why won't they let us see these computers? I want to let the people know what's going on out there, what lawsuits are out there currently with these that involve these machines. And I'm going to, the thing is why would they not want to come and say, Mike, come on, you're wrong here. You're wrong. Would you, let's go on national TV and look at this, let's all talk about this. But they don't do that, Steve. Every news outlet in this country attacked me for 20-some days. And on February 5th, I wake up and nobody calls. I call these guys all day long, every day. Come on, guys. Put the evidence out there for save our country. What is wrong with the New York Times, the USA Today, the Washington Post, CNN, Fox, all these places that Dominion has them scared. Oh, we're going to sue you. Well, you know what? Good for you, Dominion. You sue me. If we don't get this solved, we don't have a country anyway. Where are you going to get the money from? The Tooth Fairy?
Okay, Mike, real quickly, we got about 30 seconds left. How do people go see these films today? How do they see the 30-minute film and how do they see the longer film?
Well, they're going to see, you can go to michaeljlindell.com or you can go to lindelltv.com. The lindelltv.com, it should take about another half hour. As you can see, we keep losing power here where I'm at and with this storm. But you guys, once you get there, you need to share it everywhere. By the way, Steve, the half hour now has been seen as of this morning by over 100 million people worldwide.
The 2 hour movie. Yep. Okay. We got about
2 hour.
We're going to talk about this. We're going to push this out today. People should see it. We always invite the Dominion guys to come on. Love to have them on to give the counter argument. Mike Lindell, thank you very much. The CEO of My Pillow and his crusade to prove that November 3rd something was amiss, and he's not going to give it up. Okay, short commercial break. Thank you, Mike Lindell. We're going to turn with America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani, and Raheem Kassam's assessment of Biden's performance last night. Next, we're in pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
My mother would say, with the grace of God and the goodwill of the neighbors, that by next Christmas, I think we'll be in a very different circumstance, God willing, than we are today. I think a year from now, when it's 22 below zero here, a year from now, I think that there'll be significantly fewer people having to be socially distanced, have to wear masks, etc. But we don't know. And the biggest thing, though, as you remember, when you and I shouldn't say it that way, as you remember, but when you and I talked last, we talked about, it's one thing to have the vaccine, which we didn't have when we came into office, but a vaccinator. How do you get the vaccine into someone's arm?
Raheem, we just had Mike Lindell. He's maniacally focused on this CCP connection in the 2020 election. And he's bound and determined. I mean, look, the thing in the Daily Beast yesterday was a throwdown. He's just saying, hey, dare you to sue me. I would think that reasonable men and women could sit down and hash through this and do it in some public format, put it up on live stream or whatever. But there's a huge gap between the bid and the ask. But he just committed right there to put out additional information, evidence every couple of days. He's got a 30-minute film up. Go to lindelltv.com. Because of the power situation out in the West, the rolling blackouts may not be up now, but write it down for later. lindelltv.com or michaeljlindell.com. And I think on the Michael J. Lindell, you get the two. We're going to get to Rudy in a second. Before we go to Rudy, these last two, am I to take it? First off, let me just say something. And my phone's been blown up by guys watching. Jack Posobiec nailed it last night. Scott Adams nailed it last night. Go to their Twitter feed. That is, I believe, given the history we've had with Ronald Reagan, what we had against radical jihad, staring down the fascists and the imperial, military junta in Japan, the history of this country, that was a disgraceful comments made by the commander-in-chief last night about the Uyghurs and about China. Basically, was you could say, hey, the Nazis had a norm. Hitler had a norm, right? People have norms. They've been identified as a genocidal regime. The genocidal regime. Ask the diaspora. Don't ask Steve Bannon. Ask the Chinese that come on here, the Chinese people that come on here all the time. Lao Beijing. 250 million, I think, have left. And these last two right here, though, are shocking. Hey, am I now to think that we're going to have this through Christmas of next year? And he had no vaccines? Totally different what Fauci says. They're federalizing the distribution. I know it's very different, but jump in here. We're going to bring Rudy Giuliani is going to join us in a second, who understands what it takes to be a statesman.
Look, I'm still stunned, and let's forget that it's Joe Biden for a second. You could put those words in anyone's mouth, it would be disgusting. It would be disgraceful what he said last night about the cultural norms of genocide. It's
also a lie. Well, cultural norms of the Chinese. So it's also a lie.
Well, it's offensive on multiple fronts. Right. It implicates ordinary Chinese people in the genocide of millions that is taking place.
Exactly.
And it also gives succor and cover to a regime that, and by the way, you don't have to believe the people that come onto war and pandemic. You don't have to believe the people that sit in these chairs, Joe Biden. Go and look at the statements. Look at the statements of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Fund, where they say there is a reasonable basis to believe the government of China is committing crimes against humanity. Look at all of the interparliamentary, all the cross-party, everything. This is not something you can deny.
Tomorrow we're going to have Eric Greitens on as co-host with Raheem. We're going to talk about Churchill. You guys brought up last weekend, but what Churchill would do, this is outrageous. Rudy?
Just very quickly.
Yep.
I want to make clear to everybody, what were the ways the Nazi Party of Germany was so easily able to get the Shoah begun against Jews? And that was treating them as others, isolating them, forcing them to emigrate, ghettoizing them, deporting them, and mass murdering them. And every single one of those things, bar mass deportations, because frankly the CCP thinks it's cheaper and more effective just to kill these people. Every single one of those things is happening, and Joe Biden calls it a different cultural norm.
It's an insult to the Chinese people. That's an insult to the Chinese people. Chinese people are one of the great civilizations. We keep saying it's unsatisfactory. You got 1.4 billion people from probably our most ancient civilization that are slaves to this totalitarian dictatorship. Okay, Mayor, tomorrow with Eric Greitens, we're going to be talking about Winston Churchill and about this whole new thing, Churchill College at Cambridge. Right, this whole thing about this awful seminar they had, and about Churchill's history. It's
where we met.
You've studied Churchill for many years. You saw Biden last night. Is that what a commander in chief does, Rudy Giuliani?
No, it's just the opposite. I mean, I wrote a book on leadership a few years ago, so now I can write a book on leadership and point out what you don't do. First of all, he didn't really answer, as the Boston Globe noted. We went back to whatever they call the Trump presidency, to a boring presidency, where he answers no question. Notice he gave no definitive position on anything. We don't know when he's going to open schools or what he's going to do about it, what kind of position he's going to take on that. We have no answers on anything. A Trump conference like that, we'd have 10 answers that we'd all be fighting about or talking about. And most importantly on China, I mean, I noticed from the little bit you could get with a telephone call with Xi that he was very accommodating. And I have a podcast about that coming on tonight and an op-ed piece tomorrow. I was really concerned that he didn't bring up in strong terms COVID or CCP virus, and the fact that just to let him know, one of the things you do with an opponent is you let him know you know the game he's playing and you're aware of it. And he should have said to him, look, I was out of it at the time, but I realize what you did. You let all those people travel all around the world and you infected the world. And that's on my agenda, Z. Big time. Big time. And then I'm not one of these people that's playing denier. I know what you said about trying to supplant us in 2049. And he would not say it the way I would say it, but, take your best shot, pal. But I'd want him to know those are two things. We're not just sitting by watching.
I will go because you an advisor to Trump. Trump confronted the Chinese Communist Party on the world stage when people waking up this morning, the world leaders, I saw that last night. How would they compare Donald Trump's full confrontation with the Chinese Communist Party with not just accommodation? It's worse than accommodation. You're essentially kowtowing. You're making excuses.
Actually, it's handing a license for genocide is what it is. If you're a bad actor on the world stage and you see that, you see a license to commit mass murder.
Rudy Giuliani, Mayor, do you agree with Raheem Kassam? Do you think that that's what Biden did last night?
Yeah, I think he assumed the normal position that Biden assumed as vice president with China. You know what that position is, and he was submissive. The best description could be submissive. A number of newspapers, even liberal ones, pointed out he never referred to him as an opponent. He did note China's desire to challenge the United States, but almost in a way that that's okay, that's all right. He didn't say, you know, we're going to challenge you back, pal, and beat you, or something like that. So the reality is, on the things that Xi wants to accomplish, he looks at Biden and says, I don't have much of an opponent here. Look, if the best he's going to do about the Uyghurs is tell me, well, I think the way he started it on human rights was so pathetic. He said, we must speak up for human rights, so we are. I don't know if that was just a figure of speech, but it sounds like he doesn't want to speak up for human rights, but he has to.
Let me go. You're going to have
it's pathetic.
Yeah, you're going to have the podcast up tonight to do particularly the readout from the 2-hour conversation. I want to the same town hall, different topic. He said that we're going to be basically he expects things to be better by Christmas of this year in New York City, which you were the greatest mayor the city ever had. Can the city of New York take the current protocols that they're going through for another year? Can the economy, can the people, can law and order, can the family take? If he's like, oh yeah, you know, by Christmas, should be, you know, getting back. Can New York City take this, Mayor Giuliani?
No, New York City is right now in a spiral that there is no logical prediction as to what would prevent that spiral, given the radical nature of the electorate in New York. And, you know, people look back to when I was elected, it's a different city. We didn't have AOCs, and I don't mean just her, but that whole group of people who looks at the world as if we're, you know, we're a left-wing country. We should be redividing our wealth. We should be ending the whale. We had very little of that. We had old-fashioned liberalism that could be appealed to come to the middle or occasionally vote for a Republican. That hard core that went way back to electing LaGuardia, electing Lindsay as a Republican, electing me. I don't see it there right now. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm studying it because I really would like to see one of these Republican candidates get elected. The only hope is, God forbid, and you hate to say this, that things will get worse. I mean, it's pretty bad right now. Subway crime, I don't know if you've been seeing New York, but
yes,
subway crime for the last week is, you know, the only story in the New York Post correctly. Well, we've got people thrown on tracks. We have this crime going on now that I don't even remember. They just come by and punch you in the face and kick you while you're down and walk away. They don't even take anything.
But why? What's
just an act of total anger and domination?
But what's the
they just come by?
But what's the anarchy about? It seems like it's almost anarchy there.
The anarchy of that is there's no. It goes back to my broken windows theory. This idiot in City Hall rejected the broken windows theory when he first came into office. He said he didn't believe in it. You know, Bloomberg used the broken windows theory. Now, it wasn't mine. It was Professor James Q. Wilson of Harvard. So they all should have accepted it in New York. It came from Harvard. So he rejected it. We're not going to pay attention to small crimes. On the subway, the big small crime is you don't pay the fare. Fare beating 30, 40% when I became mayor. 5 weeks later, 2%. It brought down crime 30%. People that come into the subways to sucker punch you, rob you, rape you, they don't pay the fare. So you interrupt them, number one. Number two, even the ones that do come in, you identify them. Because if they don't pay the fare, you take their picture, you take their fingerprints, half of them turn out to be violent felons. This idiot does away with it. Yeah. And subway crime goes up 50%. Subway ridership goes down 75%. It really went up about 180%.
Mayor,
I tell people not to ride the subways. I have.
No, it's
you
it's
know
scary.
My friend that he can't maybe take care of himself. I make sure he gets driven home every night.
Okay,
wouldn't put him on a subway. I mean, if I had to walk him home.
Mayor, your podcast tonight's coming out tonight is about the CCP, about Xi and Biden. It's another Rudy's podcast on fire. How do people get the podcast? You've got the WABC show every day at 3:00. You can get the app and listen to it. You got the weekend show, but tell people how they go to the podcast.
Rudy'sCommonSense.com, and it should be there about 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight.
And this is a total.
And then it'll be followed by an op-ed piece.
Okay. Op-ed tomorrow.
Then I'll follow with an op-ed piece on Rudy's CommonSense.com, so that we flesh out some of the things that have come up since then. Because I think this is the most important foreign policy issue. There's no doubt. I mean, I'm only saying the obvious, Raheem. China is the number one foreign policy problem we face. Except for the internal possibility of overthrowing us,
Yeah.
China is the only country that can challenge us.
Okay, Mayor, we got to bounce. The podcast comes on tonight. We'll talk about more about after break. Mayor Giuliani, thank you very much. Tom Della Beccaro next in California.
They have all lied for too long.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Before Tom Del Beccaro was heading up the recall out there of Gavin Newsom and opening up the second front on the Biden administration, he's an old China hand. Tom, real quickly, last night, Joe Biden's performance vis-a-vis China on the world stage. What's your assessment?
There's a living seriously under Biden. He's physically and mentally the weakest president, whereas in a dangerous age, we live in this technological age and the nuclear age. Sure, Carter was weak, but the danger wasn't nearly as much. I say that what happened last night, unless they scramble dramatically, is the worst foreign policy statement since 1950 when Dean Acheson rode out South Korea from U.S. protection, which led to, in effect, a mini world war. That is how dangerous that speech is. And Raheem, it's good to see you again. I haven't talked to you in a while. He's 100% right. What is going on right now is every tin cup dictator all the way to China feels emboldened because it's not just his physical weakness. It's not just that he stocked his administration with apologists for America and on and on and on. He's just not in control.
No, I think particularly, I want to get to the recall, but particularly in compare and contrast, Trump. I mean, Trump's so forceful on so many, but particularly on China. And that sent a message to the world stage. That's the reason that we've got China boxed up right now, and you're just going to let them out. So it's very tragic. Go ahead, Tom.
It's a simple formula, peace through strength. Whereas Jefferson said that which prepares you for war secures your peace. China, it plays the long game. It doesn't need to roll over anybody's border, especially when you lay down technologically and in so many other ways. I got to tell you, if I was in Taiwan right now and I saw that statement, I would be shivering.
Well, I think is what Raheem was talking about. Okay, let's go to the recall. What progress are you making? People want to know about this. Why is it important for our audiences, a global audience, but particularly the rest of the country? Why should they care what's happening in California?
So, as you know, I'm chairman of RescueCalifornia.org. We have surpassed 1.6 million signatures and our goal to 2 million. And you can help us out at RescueCalifornia.org. Listen, if you want accountability in government, because that was in part what Donald Trump's entire mission was, to bring accountability. If you want accountability in government, realize that the Democrats and the unions are at this 24/7, and we can't turn a blind eye, go to work, and hope they do the right thing. So we did this recall in one of the bluest states in the country because we wanted to stand up to his corruption. Gavin Newsom yesterday or the day before gave a no-bid contract to his donors to administer the vaccine. So this recall isn't just about Gavin Newsom. It isn't just about California. It's about the entire country. We've become a focal point for government accountability. And given that they seem to think California is some sort of model for the country, that being Biden and Harris, which is ludicrous because we lead the nation in poverty and the hollowing out of the middle class. If we can make this statement here, as you like to point out, we can undermine this entire narrative of California being so great. Look, I love this place. It's beautiful. You used to hang out here before, you got smarter than me. We cannot allow this to go on. We're making a statement, and if 2 million people sign this, that's an amazing feat.
Okay, RescueCalifornia.com. You got to get people to go there now. When everybody in the world .org, California.org. Go now. If you're watching the show in the podcast, go. You got a couple of minutes here. Walk through. What's the timeline? What's the critical path? Where do you go from here?
We have just three weeks remaining to finish off. We think we'll hit 1.7 million by Sunday. We have 3 weeks left. We want 100,000 signatures a week. And then the rest of the verification process takes place. It's about a 2-month process. Then in late May, they're going to declare that we have qualified the recall. And from there, they're going to send an election, which should happen in August. You know, California Democrats put about 700 bills a year on a governor's desk. About 697 of them are just wasteful spending. And this is a chance to slow that. And keep in mind that California economy should be 16, 17% of the nation's economy. The Central Valley used to be lauded for saving world hunger. Now it's starved of water because of the bad enviro policies that are out there. You know, California is a place, Steve, I don't know if you know this, they run commercials that say up in the Northern California, turn off your energy at night because we can't collect solar energy at night.
Yeah.
That is the model for the country that Newsom and Harris want.
I got to tell you, you have, in his handling of the COVID, I got it real quickly, you've inspired people. We're going to have later, from your thing the other day, there's a revolt in Arizona. They're recalling Ducey. There's a process to recall Ducey and the supervisors of Maricopa County. November 3rd is not over, ladies and gentlemen. People are being censured. They're saying, hey, guys shouldn't run again. They should, resign. But there's, whether you're recalling Gavin Newsom or particularly in Arizona because of the election on November 3rd, they're inspired by what's going on in California. They're going to recall Ducey, and they've started the process of recalling the Maricopa County. Tom, we got about 30 seconds left. How do people get to you, both social media and how do they get to the site today?
Okay, they go to rescuecalifornia.org, and you can follow me on Parler at @TomDell or Twitter at @TomDellBeccaro. Thanks so much for having me on rescuecalifornia.org.
Rescue California, Tom Del Beccaro, the head of it out there. They're trying to recall Gavin Newsom, and this is vitally important. Remember, California has been the railhead of the money of Nancy Pelosi. All her cash, all donor cash comes from there. Also, the tech oligarchs. In addition, every bad idea, California is ahead of the curve in politics. Every bad idea that's now in the Biden administration, hey, the railhead of that bad idea was the state of California. Tom, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for the insights into the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, we're going to continue on about exactly what Biden is doing. It's total confusion now, I think, about the school situation. So we're going to come back in the next segment. We're going to start with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis lays down hard. We've got a video of him, and then we're bringing in the CEO of Job Creators Network. It has this amazing billboard up in Times Square. Alfredo Ortiz joins us about the schools and the vaccines next on War Room Pandemic.